everybody. Welcome to the Quivercast.
You go left, I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Quivercast. Today we are at the Hobie headquarters in San Juan Capistrano. Today we have Gary Larson.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, stoked. Thank you for doing this. And then Chris Carlo is a repeat guest.
Yes, sir. It's good to be back.
How you doing, Chris?
Very good.
Gary, so
Sure.
you're the shaper of Hobie. I know there's a few other guys, Adam,
Yeah, I'm the main kind of in-house shaper.
in-house shaper. There you go.
Just exclusive to Hobie, pretty much.
Okay.
And have been with Hobie since 2005.
Yeah. How did that whole process start?
I started shaping with Infinity Surfboards,
Yes.
another Dana Point
Yep.
surf brand, and learned how to shape there but under Steve Bainey. And then was with Infinity for about 10 years.
Okay.
And an opportunity came up with Hobie. They kind of approached me. I couldn't turn it down because it was shaping with Terry Martin,
Yes.
obviously a legend,
Legend.
in the shaping community. And so to be able to do that, my shaping room was right next to Terry's. He's someone that I really looked up to. He's a huge mentor of mine. And I try and emulate kind of what he did in the shaping room, his style of shaping, the boards that he liked. And they're also my favorite boards too. So
Okay, there you go.
yeah.
So before you become a shaper, I'm going to guess you like to surf.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, so I grew up right here in San Juan Capistrano, about not even a 10-minute bike ride to Doheny.
Okay.
So that's where
Perfect learning wave.
yeah, I think most of the people that live down here end up learning to surf at Doheny.
Yep.
It was kind of a family weekend deal. We'd ride bikes down, and my brother and I have an older brother. He's about 18 months older, so obviously whatever he's doing, I want to do.
Yes.
So we'd take boogie boards with us, play in the surf, and then one day, I don't even know how the board got in our garage, but there was a surfboard in the garage. So we took that down and ended up learning how to surf at the river mouth right there at Doheny.
So did your parents surf or anything?
No, they didn't surf, but they loved hanging out at the beach. They were awesome parents that just let us go play in the ocean every day, without just my brother and I would, after school, ride our bikes to Doheny, spend the whole afternoon until the sun goes down surfing. So that's where I spent most of my time. Are you familiar with like that area?
Yeah, really
And
good.
it's funny thinking about why we were always at Doheny, because really the only other spots to surf are Strands on the north side of the headland and
Yep.
Salt Creek.
Yep.
We're kind of in the zone.
Yeah.
But everywhere we were going, we were just riding our bikes, and that hill getting up and over the headland kind of separated
Yeah.
where you're going to go.
Huge.
Yeah,
And Doheny is probably the safest beach in Southern California.
absolutely.
Like, it's not real powerful. It gets good, but
Yeah, and it's always protected by the wind. I mean, it could be blowing out of
Totally.
the north like 30 miles an hour, and it's offshore.
yes, 100%, especially in the summer.
Yeah.
Everywhere else is blown out.
Yeah.
Were you attracted to it though? It's kind of a slow wave, so I can see you getting better at surfing. Did it feel like you needed to explore and try other waves?
I don't know, because I think I was just having fun surfing.
Yeah, okay,
And
makes
obviously, you'd be riding a longboard out there.
Yeah,
It's
of
the most
course.
easiest board to ride out there.
It's almost impossible for a shortboard.
Right. That was kind of where I kind of developed my skills and everything,
Yeah, of course.
but never really even thought about other waves.
Okay.
Just because, I don't know, I think we had other interests too. Growing up, fishing, lots of fishing, and surfing was just something to do. I never really thought about anything outside, like, where can I take this,
Oh, okay, yeah. Like just a Grom.
Yeah, just a full Grom.
Okay. What was the crowd like at Doheny at this time? Probably a lot different than it is today.
Oh, yeah. I think,
Were there like local characters that
yeah, there were definitely the local characters. Gosh, who can I remember? Do you remember a guy named Curtis?
I don't
That,
remember Curtis. No.
Old guy that he surfed every single day, even through the winter when
Wow.
it's flat.
it's deadly flat?
Yeah, and he would I just remember his whole face was painted white with sunscreen.
Yeah.
and he always wore a hood and everything. And then he was definitely pretty salty. And then you get
That's
to
rad,
know him.
though.
Yeah, it's awesome. But he passed away, gosh, probably 20, 25 years ago. And
Okay.
one of the rocks down at the jetty is painted green, and it has Curtis written on it.
Oh,
It's kind
cool.
of an homage to him. Yeah,
That's
so you
rad.
can see that. Yeah.
Okay. Were people looking out for you guys? Were like,
Dude, it was like the Lord of the Flies. It was,
really?
yeah, you know, you get your little crew that you hang out with.
Yeah.
Other crew of Groms, you know, would be hanging out too. And you'd do a little bit of battling. We'd fend for ourselves. Shamefully, we would just walk the beach asking for change.
That's perfect.
And
So you get food.
yeah, and walk up to the fuel dock at the end of the jetty, buy some licorice.
Yeah.
And that was the whole
The
day.
sugar to keep you going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Grom life, I think. And what year is this?
That would have been like 93, 92,
Yeah.
91.
80s, 90s. This sounds like probably 90% of the surfers today
Yeah,
live this life that you're talking about.
right.
So these other crew, were they local? Like they different school or like who were
Yeah,
they?
different school, and they would get dropped off by their moms or whatever. And it's funny because you try and, I don't know, outsurf each other or snake each other, trying to claim dominance or localism over,
I love
over
it. Yeah.
Doheny.
Was it fun?
Oh,
doing that?
yeah, absolutely.
Was there ever altercations or
Any
something on the
scraps?
beach? Yeah.
There was only one that I remember.
Okay.
And I was definitely a one-sided fight. And,
Okay.
yeah, but
What side?
it was our
Was
side.
it-
That,
okay, you guys
yeah.
won?
Yeah.
Okay, and then did you guys become friends later on?
Yeah.
With
And we-
years
yes,
and years
yeah.
of seeing each other.
Yeah, once you start going to high school, and then different high schools have to compete against each other for surf team, and then it's all the memories come back. It's like, dude, remember we were at Doheny and this, that, or whatever.
What school did they go to? So you went to
I went to Dana Hills,
Yeah.
and then our surf team competed against Lisa and Nigel,
Okay.
and San Clemente
all right.
and Laguna Beach.
Okay. All right. So you get older, you become a shaper at a young age too.
Yeah, really young age. I fell into that one for sure. Steve Bainey built a shaping room as part of that building.
Yep.
That was really unique. I would go in and just watch him shape. He allowed that.
Oh, okay.
I just got interested. I just like to tinker with stuff and know how stuff works, how the board was shaped.
Okay.
And so just began watching. And then over time, he would kind of say, hey, do you want to try and finish this board? And his method was perfect.
Okay.
So he would, outline the board, cut it out, plane it, and then get it to a point where you can just fine sand it.
Mhm.
And then he would give it to me. And I did that, for probably 6 months or so before touching a planer. From there, just started shaping.
Do you remember the first day you held a planer? And how did it feel?
Terrified. And I still think about this. The torque of the planer when you turn it on,
Okay.
it kind of torques in your hand a little
All right.
bit.
Uh-huh.
And it's heavy.
Yeah,
and,
very heavy.
And that was like, he always said, whatever you do, just don't drop the planer.
Mm.
That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
And then don't hold it close to your clothes. And I remember his son, Dan, had actually kind of swung the planer. He was planing and then dropped the planer down to pick up the board and look at it. And it sucked in his t-shirt. And I just couldn't, I was just like, geez, okay, lots of respect for this tool.
And what were you guys shaping at that point in Infinity? Because Infinity was shortboard, longboard, and kind of everything.
Yeah, for me, it was basically longboards. Dan did most of the shortboards,
Okay.
not all the shortboards. And Terry Sennett was doing a lot of the shortboards.
Okay.
That would have been 95, 96. So a lot of the high performance longboards, fun boards.
Yeah.
Towards the late 90s is when I would say the old school longboarding was starting to come on the rise, kind of displacing that high performance
Yeah.
longboarding.
Yeah.
And so it was
Basically, the progressive longboarding was pros that are getting a little too older.
Yeah.
Just bringing it, starting the longboard tour.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I like the way they surf, but it's not what I see today for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, I would say that it's easier to watch longboarding when it is that classic kind of smooth style.
It's prettier.
Yeah.
Is that what the word, or is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, more graceful.
Well, graceful. There you go. Were you always surfing a longboard? Because you were surfing Doheny, were you ever going, did you ride a shortboard at all?
Right. So it's funny, I didn't ride a shortboard until high school. So
Wow.
until 14.
Okay.
What a trip that was. How squirrely. I totally remember the first day of riding a
Yeah.
little 6.0 and how squirrely it was.
Yeah.
Because surf team was at Salt Creek.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of...
Were you on the team? Or were you trying to get on the team, or what was it?
No, I was on the team.
Okay.
And
As their longboarder? Or?
yeah, so we had a longboard team as well.
Yeah.
So we'd surf our heats on the longboard at Point was where they had the contest. If you've ever surfed Point, just mush Point.
Yeah.
Easy to longboard. And then as soon as the heat's over, grab the shortboard, run down to gravels.
Was it a challenge to learn to shortboard?
No, pretty smooth transition.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's funny, what you learn on a longboard crosses over really well to a shortboard in that you kind of understand where to get speed on a wave instead of like, you see a lot of shortboarders that just shortboard
Yeah.
and they're manufacturing speed through lots of pumping or, turns where you don't need to turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than with the longboard, a lot of the times you're just waiting for the wave to be in the right spot on the
Yeah,
wave.
you're saying it like in the pocket.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Longboarding, was that always what called you, and shortboarding you just kind of did? That's what it sounds like. Or
Yeah, it was just kind of by default. I had to ride that longboard. And then from high school on, I probably didn't really touch a longboard.
really? Okay.
Yeah, until, I don't know, mid-30s probably.
Wow. Okay. Did you miss longboarding? Doheny's right there. So did you kind of just skip Doheny for those decade?
Yeah, yeah.
Or two decades probably?
I spent a lot of time traveling. Probably the majority of any free time I got
Okay.
was spent traveling somewhere.
Wow. All right. Cool.
Obviously, shaping kind of affords that in that we make our own schedule.
Yeah. So you work your ass off to make money to get out of town.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Make my own schedule, work as many days in a row as I can, and then take off.
Let's talk about the places you went to.
I've always been fascinated with not only surfing, like coastlines and traveling, but culture is something that really
Nice.
drew me to traveling. But man, I think, let's see, first trip was Tahiti,
All right.
and that was kind of, I think, mid-90s,
All right.
96 or something. That was awesome.
What's your first thoughts of showing up there?
Getting super sunburned.
How are the waves?
I remember the waves are really good. A little bit intimidating because this was on Moorea, and you take a boat. It's probably only a half a mile out to the Reef Pass. Definitely the most machine, like, in California, we don't have anything really, unless like there's a good sandbar or something, a wave that's that perfect where you know where it's going to break every single time.
Wow. Okay.
It was crazy. I remember the waves come in so much faster, right? Because they're just coming from super deep water, moving way faster in that deep water. And then, so it's like the timing was something to get used to. Yeah, it was a great, great trip.
Okay. Who'd you travel with? Were you going solo or did you have like friends?
Two guys that I really traveled quite a bit with.
Okay.
I've taken several just solo trips, which are always fun in theory, and then you get kind of bored a little bit.
Oh, do you? Okay.
A little bit sometimes, but it's easier to make a decision, obviously, of like where to go eat or what to do.
Yeah, there you go.
Gosh, where else? Oh, shaping's also, that's what I kind of used also to travel.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, to go somewhere and shape for a little bit.
Yeah.
Brazil was one place that was definitely a culture shock from California.
Okay.
And, so I got to shape there. Like talking about culture and traveling, to be able to see with your own eyes the favelas, the super poor areas, like butted right up against the uber rich communities.
Okay.
And just kind of.
More extreme than Mexico even? Let's say?
Yeah.
Oh,
Way
really?
more. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We were
Okay.
there, and I was with a Brazilian guy, and we were driving kind of past this favela. And I remember this police helicopter was coming down super low onto one of the houses. And I was like, what are they doing? And he's like, they're probably looking for the drug dealers. And we watched him pull the machine gun out and just start shooting down into the favela.
Wow.
And he said, he was like, it's totally common here. That's how they get.
Holy shit.
Oh, that was right before they had the Olympics in
Oh, so
Rio.
they're trying to clean it up.
So they were really trying to clean it up. Yeah.
That's the way to do it, I guess. It's probably not a good way, but
Yeah. When I was in Brazil, flew home. Right when I got home, the guys at Hobie said, oh, do you want to go to China? Because they were going to actually
Wow.
manufacture those big paddle boards, in
yeah.
China.
yeah.
So I said, sure. I remember driving up to LA, getting the visa, like super rushed. Got on a plane, flew to Guangzhou, China. That was a trip too. I mean, when you get to these factory towns, I can't paint the picture for you because it's unbelievable. The factory itself is probably the size of, with no exaggeration, probably like 10 Costco's.
Wow.
Long. They're lined with dormitories, so the workers also live on site.
Oh, shit.
And they're just pumping out. I mean, they were doing the paddle boards,
Yeah.
but I asked the guy running the factory, I was like, well, like, what's the main product that you produce? And he just picks up this little plastic piece that goes to, it's part of a sailboat or something.
Wow.
He's like, this is it. And this machine just, I mean, it was probably kicking out 1,000 every 10 seconds.
Gnarly.
Yeah.
Wow. What did you feel like when you were shaping overseas?
Shaping is such like the comfort of your own shaping room. Like it's
I can see that.
really hard to match. Brazil, it's super, super hot. And they have these little swamp coolers, but they don't work that well because anytime there's foam dust floating around, it's just going to clog anything.
Yeah.
So getting used to different lighting definitely it takes some time, different rack stands. But I also just travel with all my own tools. So I make sure to bring my own planer, templates, and everything else.
What's the pay like overseas versus working at home?
I usually just demand the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Brazil, where else have you shaped?
France was great.
I think a lot of the guys go to France.
Yeah. France is, but I was there in the winter and it was freezing. That's all. That's
Opposite.
Yeah. I remember that being, it was cold and rainy,
Okay.
but really, really good waves.
Does the foam and the glass and all that change with the weather and the circumstance
Yeah, for
that
sure.
you're put in?
Yeah.
And how does that affect shaping?
So I'm not sure exactly, like throughout the year, I'll get blanks which are too dense. What that does is it'll start to tear when you're planing it if you're going too fast. To me, it seems like it's the humidity when they pour the blank that causes a change in that density or something. I don't know. But yeah, throughout the year, you can see a run of really good blanks. It seems like it's always during kind of the fall, winter. And then once we get to summer, we get a lot of those blanks that are a little bit more dense.
Okay. But in other countries, so when you're shaping the blanks, does it make a difference what the weather is outside? Or is
No.
It's all about when they made the blank,
Right, yeah.
the foam from the blank.
The only thing I noticed is when it is dry out,
Okay.
there's a lot more static. And that static with the vacuum hose on the planer, you get that hose too close to your face and you get a nice little shock.
Okay. Going backwards, you turn 30-ish, and you start getting back into longboarding again. What motivated that?
There was probably a short period too where I was surfing maybe, I don't know, once or twice a week. So slowing down on the surfing just, and it was mainly because I was going to school and then the crowds changed.
Okay. 100%. What year is this, do you think?
I graduated in 2005 and then went back to school in 2008 to grad school.
Yeah.
I think I was spending a lot of time just working on that grad degree. Wasn't surfing a ton. And
Okay.
then
Were you still shaping?
still shaping, yeah.
Okay. So that was your job.
Oh, yeah. That was my job. I'm trying to think if I was doing anything else. I was shaping for Hobie. And then I also was shaping for Channel Islands, just scrubbing their boards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that got me through
Wow.
those years. And then, then I really noticed that's when the crowds kind of,
When you kind of
definitely
walked
changed.
away from it, then all of a sudden you see it, right?
oh, yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
wasn't gradual.
There's a lot of people that kind of moved away from surfing at that same time,
Yeah.
especially like from Salt Creek, started having families, doing different things, and then showing back up and just felt like a totally different beach.
I guess we skipped the part of you're in Infinity for a long time,
Yeah, about 10 years until 2005.
and then you come over to Hobie.
Come over to Hobie. I remember it was September or October of 2005. Everything was going great. It was awesome. Shaping next to Terry. And then I think it was December 5th is when Clark Foam shut down. And that was a bummer. All of a sudden, we didn't know what to do.
Mean job-wise, meaning surf industry-wise? Like, what do you mean?
Job-wise, for sure.
For sure.
It's like, what am I going to do every day?
And you need to make money.
Right. It's the only way to get paid.
Right.
But luckily, Hobie had a good backstock of blanks.
Yeah.
And we always just kept 100 or so blanks in stock.
Sweet.
So that held out for a little while, but you wouldn't believe how many people were trying to fill that void.
Yeah.
We had to deal with a lot of bad blanks during that period.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of shows you what a monopoly does.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Because no one could immediately step up and give us what we needed. But then eventually with U.S. blanks, it's pretty much the same. It was the same people that were working at Clark Foam started U.S. blanks. Feels about the same. You're talking to the same people. The great thing with Clark was that you can literally call on Monday, order a blank, and it would be there Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
Just dropped off.
It was right down the street.
It was right down the street. Yeah.
The advantage of not having to ship it across the country or
Yeah.
whatever. You come to Hobie, though. What's your first thoughts? Like, Clark Foam's gone.
They definitely took care of me to make sure that I always had work to do. So we started messing around with the paddle boards. That's really what caused us to get into
Makes sense.
the paddle boards. I had experienced, I had made probably 3 or 4 prone paddle boards out of EPS foam. You know, we'd drive up to somewhere in LA, in Carson, and buy giant blocks of styrofoam
Oh, okay.
and
Cut
and
your own
shape,
kind of legs?
just shape your. It was like used for construction or something. Just giant blocks, but they were dirt cheap, super light. Made some prone paddle boards, and then that's right when stand-up paddling became massive.
Yes.
So we were hand shaping all those ones at first before going overseas.
This whole new category, really.
Right. That kept us busy, and then by the time that had been handled, you know, going over to China, doing all that, then the blank situation was all handled. US Blanks was on board, and we just started pumping out the surfboards again.
So you changed gears
Yeah. That
by choice or because you wanted to? Or like,
the paddle boards are such a drag. They take so long to shape. That foam, too. Have you ever tried shaping?
No.
EPS foam, it's just styrofoam.
Yes.
Super,
I see
super
a lot of
light.
the beads.
Yeah. So they fly around a little bit more. They
Okay.
don't just drop straight down to the floor.
Yeah.
They grab a lot with tools, especially sandpaper. It's really difficult to sand with sandpaper. But surprisingly, I would say probably the best boards I've ever ridden were EPS boards, just because of how light they are, but I won't shape them.
You won't shape.
No.
Okay. So you come to Hobie, you're there for paddleboarding, but now you're switching gears, and now you're getting to go back into
Yeah.
to shaping
the whole
traditional
brand,
longboards kind of thing.
right. Yeah. The whole brand itself, it's based off of kind of like heritage and legacy, and
Of course.
more or less reflect what the 50s and 60s looked like,
Okay.
that era. We do a lot of the boards that we're making today are kind of models that were coming out in the 60s.
Yes.
So it's super like 50-50 rails, single fin, lots of stringer combinations, that sort of thing.
Maybe I'm saying this right, or maybe I'm saying it wrong, but it's like old ideas make them new ideas. Is that correct? Like you're taking the old boards as the main template and then putting the modern twist to it.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. They're way more user friendly today.
User-friendly is a good way.
if you're trying to replicate a board from the 60s,
Yeah.
that 60s board is super heavy, glassed with like 8 or 10 ounce glass. So the fins themselves were a bit thicker.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have flex fins that improve the performance of a board, lighter blanks, better glass, better resin.
Okay.
And then also just kind of through learning how boards work, kind of messing with foil, the thinness of the nose and tail really can change the performance of the board.
Yeah. And you may want to jump onto this part, Chris.
Sure.
We'll kind of get this. Hobie has been around for 75 years.
75 years, yeah, since 1950.
Wow.
Out of Laguna Beach. Yeah.
What's the game plan for to keep it what it is, but also be modern? Does that make sense?
Well, I think Gary touched on it pretty well. We're taking some old school tech, using some of that material in terms of heavyweight foam, good amount of wood stringers in there, employing some kind of classic rockers, so to speak. But like Gary and I just shaped a board the other day where it kind of employs some of that old school in terms of outline and materials, but adding more rocker in certain areas, using different glass to make them feel more modern, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you can do more things, because I feel like it's really, really fun to ride a traditional longboard when it's really lined up, like at a Church's Wave or something like that.
Okay, makes
we have
sense.
a nice open face, so you can kind of ride the nose adequately. But how often is it super perfect and lined up like a mount? I mean, Church is still a great wave, but it has its moments.
Yeah.
So you just want to make boards that have some of that sensation in terms of, you can ride the nose, you can do a decent drop knee cut back, but also push around sections when you need to get around somebody or get around a foam ball or something along those lines. So yeah, we're just trying to have some of that old school vibe, but make things that are easier for people to ride. And Gary does a great job doing that stuff.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, Gary. So when you have a blank, what are you thinking? Do you have a thought, or do you kind of just let your hands do the job?
No, I definitely have a thought. Depending on if it's like a custom order
That's true. Okay.
or just something
So let's
that's
say a custom order.
on a custom order, then
Yeah.
I definitely think about that surfer's ability, where that board's going, all goes into little nuances that I'll kind of change on the shape. And then also, I don't know, I think I like when I like to shape and I can just do it without any sort of constraint on dimension or anything.
Okay.
I really like symmetry,
Okay.
and I really like lots of curves, no hard spots in the board overall.
Okay.
So more the traditional 50-50 rails, minimal rocker type stuff.
As one of the regular guys that live around here, you see him at Doheny a couple days a week. You know he can surf okay. Does that guy ever come into the store and just kind of say, you know me, what model would be best for Doheny on a 4-foot day?
Yeah, totally. That happens all the time.
Okay. But they don't actually pick out the model. They just talk to you. And
They can. So my shaping room was attached to the Dana Point Hobie
yeah, I
retail
want to get
store.
into that too.
Yeah.
I want to
So
talk about that.
you can come in. If you just want to watch, there's a window there. You can
Yeah.
just watch how a board's shaped, or if you want to come in and chat for a few minutes,
Okay.
that's all right too.
Yeah, that's right.
It's funny. I was just thinking about this the other day that people ask me all the time why didn't you start your own label, as most shapers would. I really enjoy just walking in the shaping room, and Chris does a great job of making sure there's blanks in the shaping room, and the orders are filled out, and so I can just go in, shape, and then when I'm done shaping, close the door, and that's it.
Mission accomplished kind of thing.
Yeah, and I have Chris that does a great job of communicating with customers.
That is a benefit.
Oh, big time.
If you're in your own business, you got to deal with everything.
Everything.
Until you go to bed, probably, and we wake up.
I'm not a salesman.
Right. Oh, there you go.
I have a friend that told me I do a better job of talking somebody out of buying something than into buying something. And I totally see it in myself. I just can't do it.
The beauty of that, too, and what I'm thinking is this gives you a stress-free job. You're just doing what you enjoy and what you love.
Right. And
You don't have to worry about all the bullshit with it.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
So that's cool. That's
the
a
best.
great reason to order one of the boards.
yeah,
you guys.
exactly. Yeah. There's no stress for me. Chris is an excellent salesman.
Customer service is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's talk about Hobie. How many shops you guys have now?
We're up to 4 now.
Wow.
So since we last spoke
Yeah.
with Adam, we opened that San Juan store. It's thriving over there in the Rio River
Okay.
District.
I need to go
Yeah.
check that place out.
It's very cool.
I love the Dana Point store, and I love the window, and we'll get into that in a second. So,
So that store is a partnership with Florence and Visla.
Okay.
We're calling it a collaborative store.
all right, sweet.
It's about 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
We do have boards in there, but it has some unique products from Visla and Florence and Iron and Resin and Dandy Del Mar that you won't see in the other stores.
How does that work with being a collab? Are you guys competitors, or like how does that work?
Well, they inhabit like larger footprints in the store.
Okay.
And also we'll do specific events out of there that support their ethos as a brand.
Nice. All right.
so
I love
we-
this idea.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's some of the stuff that Gary and I have been talking about going into summer, but being Florence, Nathan and John will be in that store when they're in town, especially
Yeah.
for the tour and doing their movies. Nathan does a really good job of having a bunch of video content that comes out on a regular basis.
All the time, right?
Yeah, so he'll be there supporting that. Maybe even starting in springtime, we'll have kind of like a monthly little wine and dine session where people can come see Nathan's latest
Sweet.
dealio. And then Paul Nade with Visla has his own creators and innovators. So we're working on doing some sort of movie content or maybe even building a collab with those guys.
That's rad.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Hobie is a niche, right?
Mhm, for sure.
The thing about longboarding is, or even surfing, really, there's so many subgroups, but you can be a part of 3 of them. And there's probably 30, or I don't know how many there are, to be honest with you.
Yeah. What are they calling it? It's very fluid. It's a fluid
It's fluid.
genre.
Okay. So, I mean, you can literally go surf Oceanside Pier in the morning and then come up to Doheny because it's not blown out and surf Doheny.
Yeah.
Two
absolutely.
different, completely different boards.
Yep. And I definitely think that the emergence of that mid-length board, which was just a fun board,
Yeah.
but being able to like come out with new shapes, different fin setups, that sort of thing has really allowed people to surf any condition. I mean, most of us, like Mikey, probably grew up waiting for good waves before jumping out and surfing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just surf, though.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But you'd have more fun out on, with a little fish.
My boards
than-
have changed a lot now.
Right.
A big quiver.
Yeah.
Are you guys get into those fishes and stuff or not?
We do, yeah, big time.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that actually.
Yeah.
I always think longboard. Okay, so we got to take that out of our head.
Right.
That Hobie is a longboard brand, but
We
it's
make
not.
a lot of stuff for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
talk about it actually, because I'm surprised.
We definitely dabbled into mid lengths. It basically started with Terry's Retro Egg that Gary basically took up the moniker with, and then Gary's made changes to it over the years that developed to the Far Side that we came out with in 2020, which is kind of like a step up style egg. And then the latest buzzword is Twinsers. And I don't know if anyone's talked to you about those.
I had a
suckers.
Twinser back in the day in like the 90s. I think they pretty big. I had a
It's been
Twinser.
really interesting because Gary's been dabbling with some channels, and then
the channel bottoms.
yeah,
I need a channel bottom board, so I'm gonna be ordering one.
they're super cool.
need one,
We
yeah.
have a demo if you want to try it.
Okay, I
and
might.
get after
if
it.
it'll
Yeah.
fit my belly, will fit in there.
It's basically like a modernized retro egg that Gary built with the channel going on the center, and then the Twinser setup. And we've been understanding that there's a lot of Twinsers out there, but I
Yeah.
guess fin placement is super huge in Twinsers. I was just talking to another friend the other day about how the larger fin has like no cant, like a 2-degree cant, and they're making the canards, which is like the smaller fin on the rail,
Yep.
almost like a 9 or 12, and that's like makes it more maneuverable. I don't know. I guess it's been kind of a trip. So we're learning things, and yeah, Gary makes a really good one. So we're just stoked to start getting those under people's feet.
So going back to Gary, the board he's talking about, the Twinser. Are you still experimenting? Have you found the perfect combination yet?
Not at all. We're definitely early days on
That's
that one.
rad. I love this.
And then we have a great team too. Just our surf team is great because they
Yeah.
give awesome feedback, and so like what Chris was saying, a trick trying to figure out where that little fin should be placed, next to the main fin, and then seeing how the channels work, because they're not like the straight channels.
Okay.
They're curved channels, kind of how deep those channels need to be. And then also definitely where they're placed in relation to the fin, where the fin is. Yeah, it's fun stuff because then we just get to mess around and try new stuff.
Wow. And then is this all usually poly you're doing with this?
Yeah, everything's poly. Yep.
Okay. All right. So no EPS.
No.
I mean,
no.
you can check these boards out at all the shops.
For sure, it's something new that we're developing. So it's coming out to the stores. And there's a couple out there already, but we're going to be investing more of our time and efforts into getting those out into stores and to dealers, and also promoting on our YouTube channel, because we have a lot of good team riders, being like Ian Gautrin and Mason Klink and Uncle Buck and Ryland Baker, and Gary essentially makes boards for all those cats and goes through the whole R&D process of, because Uncle Buck is our best selling longboard of all time.
I hear about the sport all the time.
And Gary's made 3 versions of it so far, which has started with the Uncle Buck 1, with Terry Martin making the first, and then Gary kind of taking it over. Unfortunately, with Terry's passing, they came out with the Uncle Buck 2, maybe in 2018 or 2017, which has become one of our best sellers. And then Bucky basically goes out to Salt Creek and just goes into closeout tubes on his on his Funkle Buck, which is like a kind of a mixture of a high pro and a kind of old school. It's like a narrower outline,
Yeah.
a little more features of a high pro, but it has still a single fin, and it has single fin rocker, and being that it has nose rider rocker.
Okay. Real quick touch on the team. Who's on the team? And how do they transition from board to board?
I'm still trying to figure out what that transition is.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have, I guess you would say they're more so in our pro level, and that would be guys like Ian Gautrin,
Yep.
Bucky Berry, Ryland Baker, and Mason, who avidly out there doing either club contest or trying to do WSL events.
Okay.
And then we have another tier of just like our stoked, happy Groms that work in our shops and
Yeah.
do a really good job of taking people to whatever product they want to be on, whether it's they're selling clothing or they're bringing people into the boardroom, or they're showing people where Gary's shaping. And that would be guys like Nate Pierce and Matt Davies, specifically in Dana Point, Shane Schroeder, she's in San Juan. Those are Gage, I think his last name's Schroeder too, is also maybe a different spelling, but he's in Dana Point too. He's like just a stoked Grom. All these guys, either on Dana Hills or San Clemente. Nate and Matt are now older. They're in college. They're practically almost 21 now, but they're just super stoked, and we basically rely on them to get details on boards. And a lot of their insight has developed towards new models, along with the whole craze of making boards that are are some shapers are very in our wheelhouse are very more towards traditional, where they should be nose riders and more wide point center.
Okay.
Now there's this kind of craze, and it's been around for a while, but guys wanting to ride more boards along the lines of what was coming out in Australia in 67 and 68.
Yeah.
So those are like the wide point back kind of hippie outlines, but they're not necessarily like American pigs from the early 60s. They have more progressive rockers, thinned out rails. We add concave to some of them depending on the rider, or maybe some more full panel or rolled V. So Gary works with all those cats to basically, it's definitely a difficult job what Gary has in terms of, this would be someone coming in the room, I really want this board that does this, but can't really explain it how that's going to come about.
That's me. It's probably most of the surfers.
Yeah. So we're always trying to like imagine when these team riders and even customers too come in and like, hey, I have this already existing board, and some of them might already have a Hobie, but I'm trying to do this with this board now instead. And what other elements is it going to be, like an addition of rocker, or is it going to be an addition of maybe full panel V, or maybe just a rolled V? It's a lot of stuff that Gary interprets, and that comes out in these like new, that's a transition that becomes models, I guess, like a long story towards that.
So what's your main focus today, Gary? Is it still the longboard? Or you,
Yeah. For shaping,
Yeah,
the main focus would
shaping-wise.
be,
but still experimenting with the Twinsers and doing these other boards too.
I'd say
I guess is a question.
it's so funny. We've had
Because now you mentioned all these different.
models.
Yeah.
Really, it's surfing's such like a personal thing with the board that you like, and
But it is. But then again, if a lot of the breaks are crowded, so you also got to have that. You try to get the leverage over the other guy.
oh, trust
Or
me, it's
gal.
like all I ride now is a 610. I just got to compete a little bit.
Yeah.
But it comes down to the individual surfer,
Yeah, of
and
course.
then just trying to build the best board for whatever wave that person wants. Everything's going to evolve in some way, but a lot of ways we're kind of evolving in a circle, it seems like, and we're moving in two directions in that circle too. It's just sometimes a lot of guys want to go back to those 90s short boards with the crazy amount of rocker.
Ugly ones.
Yeah.
But they probably weren't ugly in the 90s.
No,
we looked
not-
at it, we thought they were attractive.
Dude, it's totally normal to have 8 inches of nose rocker almost flipping back towards you.
Yeah.
And then I think that's what kind of starts these little trends,
Okay.
especially with like the Twinser. I mean, think about it. Like in the 90s, we wouldn't ride, especially the late 90s, a twin fin was like, no way.
Right.
And then that came back huge by 2000. It seems like everyone has a twin fin in their quiver.
Okay. So let's talk about people's quivers. What do you feel like an average surfer needs in their quiver? Not for you, but for your customer. Me being your customer.
Definitely.
What should I have in my
Mike,
quiver?
where do you like to surf, Mike?
So I'll surf Oceanside, but then I'll surf Terramar, and then I'll surf Doheny sometimes. you know.
Yeah, if you're primarily Oceanside and it's sometimes had high barrels, then if you enjoy shortboarding, that shortboard high performance thruster is going to work great. But I wouldn't not think about paddling out on a little twin fin low rocker and just see how
Right.
fast you can go. I mean, those things, they're crazy fast. And then you're also changing the style of surfing.
Mm-hmm. A lot.
Right. And then you're
But
learning
that
more.
makes it fun.
Right. And because you start to learn more about surfing in general, right?
Yeah.
If you're just stuck
100%.
on one board,
Exactly.
you're not
That's kind of my point. So you could have a customer, and you're going to be able to cover the whole gamut for them.
for sure. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
There's some shapers out there that kind of get pigeonholed into one thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of changing nowadays, I think. But they still might be missing the longboard.
I would say, especially with hand shaping in general, it's so much easier to go to kind of change the model or the style of board that you're shaping versus, I'm not sure. I've never really shaped a board on a computer. I've never done it. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that's like, but I can imagine if you design a board on the computer, you've spent all that time to create this board on a computer, and then when you go get that cut, you're kind of stuck with it until you want to go back to the computer and do that again.
Right, and tweak it. Is the art of hand shaping dying?
Yes and no. There are fewer people hand shaping, but that's what is causing an attraction to it because it's becoming less and less common. It's like when we grew up, every board was hand shaped. Every surfer knew every
That's all it
dimension of their
was.
board.
Right.
And then,
I think back in the day, you would walk up to the local shaper, whoever it was, Terry Sennett, let's say, and you kind of just tell him where you surf, and then you kind of let them loose.
yeah.
I want to, whatever.
Yeah. And he'd look at you.
And there was no model names
Yeah.
like there is now, which I see the beauty of the model names now because you kind of get an idea where you want to go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
So that helps.
once surfing really kind of took off, late 90s, 2000s, when, with all the brands and everything, model names make sense for sure. I mean, model names were kind of always around, but now for marketing, way easier.
Right. That window in the shop and Dana Point. Like, how do you feel about that? Is it stressful? Is it fun? Is it?
No, I don't even to be honest, I
Do
don't
you
even
get
know
in the
it's
zone
there.
and you
Yeah.
don't see it there? Okay. Interesting.
It's just doing it for so long.
Mhm.
It just feels, I put headphones on and then
You're in your zone.
kind of get in a zone and you don't even know what's going on.
That's cool. Was it like that in the beginning for you?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I've ever had a feeling about the window. It's such a good opportunity for people to see what goes on
I'm
behind the
sure
scenes.
if it's a Grom or something, they don't know how board shape. It's magically on the rack.
Yeah. More people have to go see how a board is glassed. I think that would give the
Okay.
customers a huge appreciation for what goes into making a surfboard.
That's something that most people don't even talk about. They're always talking to the shaper. How important is the glass job? And do you get involved in that?
A little bit.
A little bit?
We had a glass shop here at our Capo Beach
Oh, okay.
factory, so I was much more involved then. But yeah, glass jobs can make or break a board for sure.
Oh, for sure. How's the California laws with
gosh.
glassing? It's changing, right? The
Yeah.
EPA or whatever.
Fortunately, we contract out our glassing
Oh,
to
nice.
2 shops, so we don't have to deal with that EPA stuff. I have heard that the EPA is probably the gnarliest, and it's by county.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's gnarliest in San Diego County, from what I've heard. They really crack down on that stuff down there in terms of what chemicals are used. But it's one of the reasons why we don't have a glass house is that, and I would hate to be a person that owns or manages a glass house now, is that you essentially, I mean, maybe CI could do it better, so a bigger brand, but you have to do enough of your own boards to warrant
That makes sense.
paying multiple salaries.
Yeah.
And then all the EPA stuff and the cost of glassing boards. So it just became easier just to outsource that material. But if you're a glass house, you basically have to, if you're not getting that many boards from CI, for example, you need to go out there and solicit other brands that you should be doing their boards.
Yeah.
Which is, you're out there pounding pavement, and it's not like a job that I'm envious of at all, because it's got to be tough. Surfing and surfers is not probably the most, scrupulous business people. You have to deal with some funky guys, most likely, to just make a buck. And
that's never good.
I'm not jealous of those guys. It's a hard job for sure. I thank all of our glassers that work on our boards for that, because it's hard work. It's weird hours. Yeah, Jim Hodges and Adam and Jose up in LA, like, it's tough. So all the kudos to those guys for getting those boards done, not just for us, for other people too.
Yeah, all your boards that you see on the racks are beautiful.
Yes.
And the glass jobs, I mean, key element for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what customers notice first, the glass job. Or,
It's-
that's the main
100%.
attraction, seeing all the boards, and then you're walking to a certain one that you see. It's because it's got a beautiful polish on it, or great lamination, color lam or whatever.
Yeah.
Those guys have a tough job, and they do a really, really excellent job of presenting us boards.
Right. Gary, someone comes to you and they want a wall hanger. Are you shaping that board completely different than you would someone that's going to go surf Santa?
I just did one the other day that's going on a wall, and I just shaped it exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
So you put just as much effort?
Sure. Yeah.
Really?
Well, if
I
my
would think
name's-
you would.
If my name's
Oh,
going
that's a
on
good
it.
point. All right. Because you know it's never going to be written. Well, maybe one day it will be.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
The great grandkid in 100 years might say, I'm going to try this board. Okay. So you shape it just like you would a regular board.
Yeah, absolutely. Same exact. I would shape it like it was going in the water.
Okay. Do they put extra glass on that? Or how do they do to distinguish it from a wall hanger versus one you're going to take in the water?
Well, we try to make, if it's a wall hanger, like an Endless Summer model, for example,
Okay,
like
perfect
a
example.
lot of folks don't. We've had a couple of customers take them in the water, and as they should, take them in the water and enjoy them.
I would agree.
But for the most part, they go as wall hangers, and we
Yeah.
try to glass them just like in the 60s. That's what the Volan cloth, the resin
Cool.
gloss. So we put all the work that would been expected back in the 60s into that board.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess you've touched on it pretty much the whole interview, but I'm going to ask you anyhow. Like, what headspace do you have to be in to get into shaping? If you're not feeling it today, we're doing an interview, and you're like, I'm kind of tired now. Like, do you have to be in a certain space?
No, I think I could walk in at any time of day and
Just knock a board out?
yeah. It's a lot like surfing. You know, when you're in the water, all the problems go away, and it's the same
Really?
way with
Okay, cool.
shaping. It can get stressful, especially in the summer when there's super high demand and you just see the orders stacking up. There could be stress there where I'm trying to move a little bit faster, but that's kind of counterproductive. Then you're not churning out the best stuff.
Yeah. So then how do you avoid burnout? Like from, is that a vacation or like?
Yeah, vacation for sure. But I think Chris and I work well together. He knows how many boards I want to do a week.
Oh, okay.
He won't demand any more than that, and that works great
smart.
for me.
Yeah. It's going to benefit the customer at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah.
Getting what they want. Is it important to keep surfing, being a shaper?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important. There's definitely shapers that kind of fell out of surfing,
Yeah.
but continued shaping. I mean, it's just fun. Like, there's no reason to stop, really.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes you get lazy. It's cold.
yeah, but
It's been a cold winter.
but having it be part of your life, I think it's always gonna.
Yeah.
Once a surfer, always a surfer type thing.
Not to compare you to other shapers that don't surf really, but it's kind of important to be in the parking lot too, or wherever you're parking to see what's going on in real life. Like you said, you walked away that short period, and surfing changed.
Yes,
Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
it makes sense, but like I never really completely like just walked
I
away,
know,
but
yeah.
didn't invest as much time
Right.
into it. But I think at the very minimum, just being down at the beach, watching,
Yeah.
Surfers, what they're doing, getting new ideas, that sort of thing really helps.
The demographics have changed too.
Of course, yeah.
So
Are you talking about like COVID, post-COVID?
Well, okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. A lot of new people surfing.
I think it's actually been great because, well, selfishly, because it just means more board orders.
There you go. Business wise.
Yeah.
That's good.
But I definitely don't surf the same spots that I used to surf.
How many surf schools were in Doheny in 1990?
None.
How many are there today?
What,
Too
there's got to
many?
be half a dozen, maybe?
I just try to avoid that place in the summer. I don't even go there, man.
Yeah.
It really is not a horrible way of it
Yeah.
at 5 o'clock in the afternoon
Well,
the schools are gone and it's not blown out.
it can get really good.
In the South Shore,
It
yeah.
can't get
Well,
good for sure.
yeah.
Especially when it gets,
My friends
It has
give me a
its
hard time
moments.
because Oceanside's 6 foot and closed out. So you can just drive here,
Yeah.
but you got to fight the crowd. But I'm just wondering, like, the demographics have totally changed. How many guys and gals are getting off the soft top? Are they coming to see you guys?
For sure. We get a lot of first time surfers who basically said this exactly what you just said. I'm coming off of a wave storm and I want to
Right.
get my first polyboard. Gary or Adam or Michael will make them a custom that gives them the best option to, transition to that polyboard.
Yeah.
Because the material is very different, not as floaty, obviously.
Completely.
Yeah. So you
It's
need
a
a
different
little
world.
need something that will help you. Because I feel like if people aren't catching waves, they're not having fun. So you got to transition that crossover from that, whatever that material is, EPS, open foam, cell structure stuff to a polyboard.
What it is.
Whatever the mystery foam is. And I think definitely post COVID, kind of like what Gary is saying, it's helped us to develop more of that mid length category.
Okay.
In terms of crowds, I feel like the mids, especially as you get maybe into the higher eights, or maybe if someone getting their first longboard, when you get more foam, I feel like it spaces people out. When you're on a contemporary shortboard, so you have to be more at a concentrated peak. Like, for example, like a lowers, the takeoff spot is very small. But when you get on a board with some more foam, it tends to spread people out. And I think that kind of helps with the crowds over the years.
Who is, let's say her name's Joanne and she's 30 years old and she's been surfing for 2 years on a soft top. She wants to order a board she walks into a Hobie shop. Okay. This is a fake scenario, of course. Who is she dealing with? Is there a shop Grom that's going to walk her through the process?
For people who don't know, Dana Point is probably our greatest store to go look at our boards.
Okay.
It has the largest selection.
There you go.
And then San Clemente after that. In San Clemente, we have some guys like Anthem and Freddie, who I've worked with at Icons years ago, is now with us.
Okay.
He has great knowledge on surfboards. For Dana Point, it'd be like those 3 gents, really, Gage, Nate, and Matt are all really good with boards, so they can come in and talk to any one of those three guys. And then we got a lot of people who just call us organically or email us with what they're looking for.
Okay.
For Joanne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And,
Joanne doesn't really know what she needs, though. That's the truth.
Well, we've developed, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do. Like we kind of mentioned it before. I mean, rockers play a huge factor in terms of catching waves and turning the board. It also depends on where the customer wants to be in the long run. Like if they're inspired by a specific surfer, like they see someone out in the water, and like, I want to surf like that. How do I get to that point? Some people don't know. Some people just want to catch waves and just avoid the crowd or just kind of crank a turn here and there. So we have a couple of boards like that. One would be what Gary developed with Ryland Baker. It's kind of like a lightweight nose rider, not specifically made for women, but for a lighter rider
Yeah, it doesn't
who
matter.
doesn't want to be on a longboard that's a complete dog. It's flat, but has a fairly continuous rocker, which means it's easy to paddle, but doesn't really have any like weird breaks in the rocker where you have to like transition walking back and forth from the tail or the nose. It also has plenty of like what we call like a modern rail. So it's a little soft forward for that nose ride factor if they want to go there. But as you transition back to the tail, it goes to like a low tuck, then hard edges. I feel like for a lot of people, hard edges and full panel V or rolled V really works. Like if you're having a hard time making a turn, or especially making a bottom turn, like your first bottom turn, I feel like hard edges go a long way into delivering that pleasurable experience of like, I need to get up and get going down the line. That V mixed with the pan or the edge really helps people get that first turn going. And then we also have a model that it's not really one of my favorites. The Peter Pan Slug it's a really good beginner board. A lot of people have described it as the soft top with glass on it. So it's a good way to start as well. Like I said, it's really deciding what their needs are going to be, because some people, they don't want to get on the longboard. They want to I want to get on a mid that I want to get to a shorter board immediately, like in 6 months or to a year. So like,
And there
like
is
that.
a board like that?
And that would be like the Retro Egg is a good.
There you go.
Yeah. Because Terry made that and Gary made that almost 22 inches wide with a
Which would
wide
work
platform.
For the guy that had a family and now is 20 years later wants to get back into surfing.
Exactly, because the thickness is almost at 3 inches, or maybe like a little over if you get into that over 8s range.
Yeah.
But it has modern bottom contours. I mean, Gary, either depending on the customer, puts like maybe some single to double concave in there. It's multiple fins, also multiple fins for people who need to help starting to make that turn. Helps, like a fin on the rail really helps start your turn too.
Okay.
So there's lots of
options.
Yeah.
So you're saying Hobie's the place to go?
We have a lot of options.
Not to sound too marketing.
Yeah, we do a lot of things. And unfortunately, with Mason, myself, and Bucky and Ryland, we kind of, I don't want to say we beat up on guys like Gary and Michael and Adam to make some crazy stuff. Like, for example, I'm just happen to be really into displacement hulls, and a lot of people don't think those boards work. For some people, they don't. But I just really love them right now. And I had a friend of ours tell me, "Look, why are you making boards that don't work? Like, let's get away from that." So we have everything. We have boards that don't work and boards that do work.
Well, they may not work for you, but they work for you.
Yeah,
Kind of thing. Really.
Yeah.
The Tether Cat that Gary makes for himself and for other people, it's kind of like a progressive mid-length twin fin with a smaller swallow, not like a normal traditional San Diego style fish.
Yeah.
That works for a lot of people too. Especially since COVID, we've had this explosion with the Retro Egg and the Far Side, and I think other manufacturers are seeing this too. They want to maintain that feeling of volume and paddle power, but chasing a different sensation in terms of the fins. And I think that's why you're seeing this explosion of like the CI Twin or the Twinsers right now. Is like all these people already have a mid that is a traditional 2+1 setup, which is great. It's a good place to start and go to. But now everyone's off to like, well, I like that same paddle power, but I want that skatey feeling of a twin.
What's your thoughts on glass on fins?
I like them. I love the way that glass-ons look, and it feels like you get more of an immediate response into the board from the fin to the board. Mm-hmm. But man, you can't
No
really.
one's doing it. Are you doing?
Oh no! Oh, well, we do them all on our twin fins. They're all glass-ons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that big keel fin is hard to develop a good fin that'll go into a box with that wide of a base. Mm-hmm. So we do all glass-ons on those.
So, Chris, what's in your personal quiver?
Oh gosh, I've I mean, some people might say I have too many boards. My wife would say that.
Okay, for 100%, she is saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know her, but I'm sure she is. My wife says the same.
For sure. So I have a couple.
Go to your top 3 or 4. What do you have in your car? Maybe?
Top 3 right now.
Or hitting the car.
I have a top 3 would be a glider for sure. That'd be up in there. For people who aren't into the glider scene yet, I guess people call them also wave harvesters.
So like the glider, the single fin 12-foot.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother category
Those are
we
hard
get
to
into.
ride.
Oh gosh,
They look so easy, but they're so difficult.
It just has to be small enough.
It has to be small, and once you draw your line, you can't go anywhere.
Right, just point it.
Yeah.
Stand there.
It's a trip. Like I feel like you can mess with some rockers a little bit to make them like a little easier.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, I love Skip Fry's and I love Josh Hall's and Chris Christensen's.
Yeah.
Their rockers are like really, really flat in the middle. I think that's, and then they have the break in the rocker like right where the fins start. And I think that's what kind of, you kind of have to turn them sort of flat, has that flat feeling, which I feel like if you're a back-footed surfer like Josh and Skip Fry, like they really, really work, and those guys shred. I love those dudes.
Yeah.
So we've like changed up the rockers, adding more rocker, adding more tail rocker, and I feel like they kind of shred. I mean, I like them.
So where do you ride that at?
And when we had those big hurricane swells going through our favorite spot at Doheny, I would sit off like the second spot, and it would catch like whatever it's,
way up,
6 feet or like that big kind of roller that comes through, because no one's out there, because you can't catch a wave unless you're on a board of some foam, and you basically get in super early. And I like the way they feel when the waves are big, because you can kind of like do this big like kind of rolling cutback. And when you're out there that far, people just that's the only time I start doing. When you're out there that far, people just get out of your way.
With a board that big.
Yeah, so that would definitely be in there for people getting the gliders. I was just talking to a customer just before you came in, Mike, is that the advantage of all that length, you have to be between 10.6 and 11.0 to feel all that length of the trim, the advantage of the trim. When you get over 11.0, they get really tough to turn and ride.
Yeah.
Some guys try to get 12-footers, but really they're only that great when, Church or Malibu super lined up and you don't have to push around a section. But like that's kind of the jam with those guys. And then I have Gary and Adam and Michael have all experimented with me personally of making these kind of foiled out step deck pintail nose riders that are just good all around boards. They have really flat midsections with like little kinks in the nose and tail, about like 20 inches or so. I just feel like they're kind of paddle kings, especially for mushy waves like San Onofre, and they get even mushier like during the summer. So I just love riding those boards, and they nose ride up high in the pocket, and they have like edge and V so you can whip a turn. So that's basically like one of my favorite boards of all time. It stems from a board that I used to ride when I was a kid, surfing Sanos, and I'd never been able to get off that design. And then I have 4 or 5, 6 different displacement halls that I go through. Yeah, Gary's kind of taught me about rail surfing over the years, along with our other shapers that we have. And when you're on a longboard, it's very back foot oriented, because you're kind of pivoting the board and setting on a fall line and then walking forward. For riding these type of boards, it's complete opposite, because you're making all of your movement off of your front foot. I've enjoyed like the contrast between the two and kind of keeping me on my toes so I don't get just locked into one style of surfing. My long-winded, short quiver of 15 boards.
There you go. What do you have in your car?
Mine's easy.
Yeah, okay.
Just a 5'10" fish,
Really?
6'10" fish, and a 9'8" classic longboard, the Legacy.
Okay.
So that's the one that Terry Martin developed, and it's just more of a shorter glider. So
that opens the door to wherever you pull up. However it is. Right on. A history lesson. How was the transition for Hobie, the company, during the 70s and 80s and the board and late 60s when the evolutions of shortboard was coming across?
Gosh, I feel like it was a tumultuous time, because, I mean, board design changed so much between 69 and into the 70s.
Yeah.
I feel like it wasn't all that profitable time for manufacturers. Like a lot of guys got out of the business. But I think we've had conversations with head designers and Terry in the past, because they were all with the company through that transition.
Right, okay.
Mickey Munoz, like they have great insight. And unfortunately, they made so many boards that don't really recall like what they were building back then, because the design was so different. I do feel like, I don't know, it might have been just a weird time in the 70s with I think there was like a recession and like gas crisis. Like it was just a weird time. So I feel like the 70s kind of skipped over.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how beneficial it was for the manufacturer. I never really heard any stories.
Afloat, so
yeah, but then I heard it kind of pop back with like the Simon Anderson thruster, because I hear those kind of mentions from Timmy Patterson, obviously like a legendary shaper.
Yeah,
his uncle and father started with Hobie and as glassers, and then he came on in the 80s as a full-time shaper, and he was very much part of that, like that kind of boom back into longboarding, and back into making contemporary shortboards.
Okay,
and it sounds like that was a better time. Gary probably has heard more stories than myself, but it seems like the 80s were maybe a better time than the 70s.
I think so. It seems like surfing took off again in the 80s.
But Hobie itself, the brand, what boards were they producing? That's kind of more of the question.
Yes, so that
you kind of answered it, but
they were obviously like they were shortboards, and or like the early versions of, and back then they were. I feel like the boards were either copies of what was coming out of Australia. So that would have been like the kind of shorter, stubbier ones, and then the stuff that was coming from Brewer in Hawaii.
Okay, makes sense.
I feel like all the manufacturers doing that were trying to like make some sort of short, Nat Young kind of stubby world contest board, or guys were riding full semi guns, I think of what they called them back then, with like full down rails, and they were all basically called Positive Force.
Okay.
And Bill Ogden made a logo for them, and they're kind of like a sought after board. And Hobie went through 4 or 5 editions of those. It just was a change of length and outline and fin configuration. Okay. Like I think the Positive Force 4 was a twin fin, and they were basically like regular lawn boxes with no cant. There's video of some video out there of Corky Kaler riding them before they became space sticks.
Makes sense, actually.
Especially like places like Cottons. And I heard stories like guys used to call them like training wheels, like guys who couldn't ride the regular single fins, like, oh, that guy's riding a board with training wheels. So I don't know. Like I think they're cool when you see you can watch it on YouTube. It's a pretty cool clip of it's John
on your YouTube channel.
No, this is somebody else, but someone else must have pirated it or something like that.
That's usually
it's John Severson's Pacific Vibrations, and the reason why it never came out is because it has like Crosby, Stills and Nash and like Jimi Hendrix
soundtrack,
and I think like Rolling Stones, and they never let it come out, but you can see it on YouTube, and there's that footage of Corky at Cottons, and Cottons back then looked like it was one heck of a wave,
probably
like
was
like a proper left point break.
I think well, that's a whole different conversation how the beach has changed over the years. Salt Creek, when I was a kid, it was good. I don't think it's very good anymore, my opinion, but anyhow, we can move on.
We can just let's just say that it's not good anymore.
I don't know. Okay, well, now you brought it up. I was there like a year or 2 ago, and there was no point left. The point was gone. It's sand all the way out there.
What month were you there?
It was probably in the winter. Did a walk on the Strand. I'm like, this is not Salt Creek. I remember, and I used to surf it all the time when I was a kid.
Yeah, definitely missing some sand down there for sure.
Right now, it is. There was a lot of sand when I saw it.
It just depends on what time of year.
It must have been northwest, and it all got pushed in into where the point was at, where the rocks.
Right. Yep.
It was weird.
But definitely that development at Strands
has changed it.
I think it's cut off the sand supply.
Makes sense.
That's all sand dunes.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it's asphalt.
And park and
yeah.
Trippy. Can someone, if they want to still kind of hit the lip and be a progressive longboarder, come to you guys, to you, Gary, and get a board shaped?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've done thousands of those boards, so I'm not against making really anything.
Longboard?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Lightweight.
Yeah, double 4 top, single 4 bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, I was interested. I don't see a lot of people surfing like that, but I still feel like I kind of want to get one. So from a personal perspective.
Yeah, take it out at Oceanside. Go ahead.
More like Blackies or something would be fun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Something like from 3-foot range where you can you don't really want to ride a shortboard. Going back to the quivers you guys have and we all have. Now that I'm older, I feel like I love to ride different boards to get different feelings. And if I can ride 3 boards over the same week.
For sure.
You can keep it fun and fresh.
You know, you want it to be new. You want to
get in the water. You don't want
That's the goal, is to get in the water.
Right. For me, it needs to be fresh.
Yeah. Catch some waves is really the goal.
Yeah. You have team riders. Some of these you said are B-Pro surfers. What's the prospect and how hard is it to get on? Do you guys follow WSL Pro Surfing?
I don't as much as I should. for us specifically, we're more invested in just the coalition contest.
Got it.
I think we talk about the local clubs
Yeah,
in the
I think last
past
time,
because that's the families that we hang out with and they shop our stores.
Makes sense.
We're definitely like supportive. We let our pros do like what they call like a free surf style, free lifestyle type thing. So we're not like dictating that they go out there and try to get on the WSL.
Okay.
We applaud that they are giving the effort to do so.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen with the one that was up in Pismo and then the one that was in Morro Bay, it looks like there's only like maybe an opportunity or two to get through like open qualifying for longboarding, and it doesn't appear like because I think they do the qualifying for the shortboarding in the same venue. Where they're doing the shortboarding is not necessarily like a very good way
Friendly
for longboarding.
Longboard friendly, yeah.
So it's a couple guys get on. I definitely applaud. Like Ian's gotten pretty far too. Ian got pretty into the semis last year at Morro. So I think it's just it's tough. The contests aren't cheap to get in, and
Right.
and it's I guess that's a whole thing. I hear a lot of banter about WSL politics these days.
Well, I guess my point, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I think it needs to be a separate pro longboarding tour, almost segregated from that WSL.
And Joel did a good job of that with the Vans duct tapes when he was like doing the invitationals and they were going to specific longboard waves. And I think he just, obviously he got older and the support from brands is different now. It's a weird time with what just happened with Liberated brands just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I just don't know if there's like enough money out there where a brand wants to invest like, hey, this is what we're going to do.
The Quicksilvers are gone. The stores are gone now.
Yeah.
Well, this is perfect time for Hobie.
Yeah. I would love to.
No, not to sponsor an event, but just I feel like if I want to spend my money on a surf company, I want a real true surf company. That's the cool thing about you guys. You guys are core.
We try to keep it as authentic as possible, and I think that's represented in the boards and the private label, the stuff that we make that caters to our local customer and a little bit online too. We definitely have that core feel, something that has a traditional vibe to it, and not like I guess the word is timeless. It has like a timeless feel of like the logos and the emblems, and yeah, it's been working for us. But I would like to see Hobie as a label, as a clothing line, not just surfboards. That'd be awesome if it did grow. Yeah.
But is there a 5-10 year plan or 3-year plan for Hobie? Like, where do you see the future going?
Gosh, I'm just trying to, first of all, take care of our customers first and foremost.
Perfect.
I would love to see some other dealers, and all of us, Gary and Adam and myself, have been thinking of new ways to attract dealers, and we've been open to like setting up terms and just wanting to be, like you said, in just good spots.
Okay.
And that could be good shops around mostly domestic U.S.
Yeah.
right now. So that would be like wherever there's a longboard or a traditional or a original culture we want to be in. So there's a whole scene like out in Montauk, New York, and that Rhode Island and Connecticut area. I've seen, I don't know where they're at, and they won't tell me where they're at, but they're like really good waves in that area. It looks like Rhode Island. Like they're like, yeah, just don't come here. Like,
Maine looks really good.
Yeah, so
cold though.
Places there that just have a culture is what we're focusing on, and then just like our biggest goal is probably growing our YouTube presence, so we can just.
So what's the YouTube channel?
It's Hobie Surfboards.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes, everyone.
Yeah, I'll send you a link, and we basically want to share our story of how gentlemen like Gary and Adam and Michael make boards, and also tell the stories of our team riders. And yeah, it's really just a way of just show our ethos as a company, but also give some support to the people that we love in our community.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's when stuff starts organically like that. It seems like it's the most successful.
Yeah.
When you have like your heart and soul into it. That's kind of how we make our decisions here at Hobie.
Right on.
Yeah.
Any events coming up in the near future or over the summer?
I got to look at my list of things.
Okay.
So it's our 75th anniversary. We talked about the opening of the San Juan store, which is really cool. I'm
going to go in there and check that out.
It's the River Street District. It's a great venue. There's plenty of restaurants. For those who are into breweries, there's a brewery there, and it's essentially like an open container in the entire area, so you can kind of cruise the shops and bring your family and just kind of chill. So it has a really cool vibe there.
Yeah.
So San Juan is awesome. It's about 5,000 square feet, and like I said, you can see brands in that store that you can't see in any other stores.
Yeah, I love that.
Which is pretty cool. And Vissla and Florence have their outfits in there too. We're trying to do, and we're always investigating a multitude of collabs throughout the 75th anniversary. Obviously, like our bigger events are going to go off in spring and summer. But we're doing a collab with Dano Forte of Dano Surfboards, and Adam Davenport is glassing them.
Okay.
It's a limited edition of 15. We're doing a collab with Hoffman Fabrics. We talked about in the last podcast.
Okay, yeah.
Walter Hoffman had a huge impact on Hobie's life with giving him the experience of riding his first surfboard.
Yes.
And they've been lifetime friends. Unfortunately, Walter passed away just recently.
Yeah.
But we're doing a collab with them. They're allowing us to use some fabric from the original 60s.
Wow.
So there'll be several boards that have that original fabric and kind of be a limited edition. And then we have like an open edition run of like just the fabric that they're offering currently that were Walter's favorites from the 70s and the 60s.
Okay.
That are basically reprints. But Gary and Adam and Michael are making those boards. And we're kind of cherry picking which boards get those fabrics. And yeah, some are open to customers too. But yeah, it's just been a process of like, well, we'll make this particular Uncle Buck a limited Hoffman, or we'll do this with the Ryland just to give it like that extra flair.
Sweet.
Yeah, like I said, building the YouTube channel. Events, we always have stuff going on. For example, the Hobie Film Night will be in June again.
Okay.
You can follow all these events on hobiesurfshop.com, as well as our Instagram handles, which is Hobie Surf Shop and Hobie Surfboards. Yeah, and we're just going to be at Coalition events and having a good time and trying to spread a vibe. Like I said, Nathan and John will be coming and doing more events, and a lot of, especially youngsters, want to hang out with John. I never seen...
I think Nathan's actually bigger.
Oh, really?
I think the kids love Nathan because his YouTube.
That's awesome. Yeah,
that's what I think.
Yeah, I think his presence is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I think he's outshined his brother.
and
which says a lot, actually.
Yeah, they're definitely a duo for sure.
Yeah.
And then I just, before you walked in, I got off the phone with the Quick Crew, and they want to do a Griffin event in June as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we got a lot of cool stuff. Like I said, follow both accounts, Hobie Surf Shops, Hobie Surfboards, to get the most details. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot to talk about with Gary, is that he's actually an associate professor at Saddleback.
I was going to ask him about a school. That was on the list.
Oh,
Yeah.
It kind of got...
I do teach at Saddleback Community College.
Yeah, so you're the smart guy in the room, for sure.
Not really.
Yeah.
No, so if anyone wants to take a class at... so I teach geography, physical geography, cultural geography. Oh, it's fun. It's great.
And that gives you the other side of the brain kind of working? Are they two just...
Yeah, when you're in the shaping room, it's just me and my own thoughts.
Yeah.
At least when I'm in the classroom, I can at least speak to an audience.
There you go. What are you sharing with them in the class? What are they learning? Geography, I guess.
Well, what's funny is geography. I don't think people misinterpret kind of what it is. It's just the study of the earth. So physical geography, we're just studying all the natural processes in the world, be it from why does it rain, why do earthquakes happen, what causes a volcano to erupt, those types of natural processes. And then cultural is fun because then you're looking at different cultures all around the world. Like, for instance, one of my favorite subjects is how punishment works, like civil punishment works in different countries for different crimes.
Yeah.
So it's fun. You learn a lot.
That sounds actually super interesting. Appreciate Chris Carlo and Gary Larson for coming on the Quivercast. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
We're out of here, everyone. This is Mike, Gary, and Chris. We're out of here.
Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. Ride this wave to the shore. Paddle out, I'm gonna catch 10 more. Going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. I don't care if it's wrong or right. I'm gonna do it all day, I'm gonna do it all night. I'm going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. On my way, it's a beautiful day. I'm going surfing. I'm going surfing. Going